What if I told you that slavery is alive and well in this day of age? No, not the imperialistic form of slavery from centuries ago, but a social form of slavery. Whether you live in the United States or not, society has implemented this expectation of the so-called American dream. The expectation that you will get married, have kids, live in a nice house, raise your kids with the hopes that they will fulfill their dreams, get old, retire, and enjoy whatever years you have left. Yeah, that dream. Unfortunately, dreams do not often align with reality, at least not for the majority of people. The reality is the average person gets out of school, whether this is high school or college, work, someday get married, work, someday have children, work, someday buy a house, work, hope for a happy retirement, work, then finally retires, but the retirement money may not be enough, so they have to work part-time. By the time most people realize it, they have made you work your whole life. And the tragedy is, it was probably doing something you didn't enjoy. How does this end up happening? The average college student owes around $20,000 in school loans upon graduating with a bachelor's degree. This loan roughly lasts around 10 years if paid the minimum amount monthly. The average mortgage or home loan is $150,000 and lasts roughly 30 years if paid the minimum amount monthly. The average car loan is $12,000 and lasts 3 years if paid the minimum amount monthly. So if you went to college, by the time you graduate, probably around 22 years old if you graduated on time, you will essentially be in 46 years of debt if you plan on buying a house and 2 cars in your lifetime. 22 years old plus 46 years of debt. You'll be 66 years old by the time you pay off all the debt if you pay the minimum amount monthly. 66 years old. If you did not go to college, good news, you saved yourself roughly $20,000 and 10 years of debt. Bad news, you earn roughly $1 million less in your lifetime compared to a college graduate. So you do the math. Oh, you also have to know that I was very generous with my numbers. I actually rounded down a substantial amount. You also have to consider the fact that I did not include any cost of living expenses, such as credit card debt, utility bills, cost of raising a child, property taxes, cost of food, etc. By the time most people realize what debt really is and understand financial responsibilities, it would already be too late. By that time, most people have a family to take care of, a mortgage, and a car to pay off. They will realize that if they want to maintain their current lifestyle, they will have to keep on working to pay off those bills, those debt, hoping to hit the lottery, and wishing for a way out. This happened because people do not know before they start digging. Then they just dug themselves in too deep. Modern society is materialistic. Companies want you to buy their products and services. They push status and prestige on inanimate objects. They want you to buy the most expensive houses, cars, and things you cannot afford. All in hopes of putting you into debt, therefore putting you into work. You work so you can pay off those debts so you can buy more things that will put you into more debt. The cycle continues until maybe one day you will come to the realization that debt is slavery. In order to break this cycle, you must understand what debt is, or at least feel debt differently. Debt is extremely toxic towards your life. I have heard arguments that debt is good, that with good debt you can build a business or fund future investments. Wrong. Debt is a financial cancer. A cancerous entity is never a good thing. A good debt is an oxymoron, and you are a moron if you believe in this oxymoron. There is, however, a good loan. When a bank or financial institution offers you a loan, whether this is for a car, business, or a house, it is lending you the money in good faith that you will use it for a positive investment, and that you will pay back the loan with interest, of course. But wait, good loan, but no good debt? Aren't they the same thing? Yes and no. They're on the same coin, but on different sides. Then what's the point of thinking that way? The good debt model is an idea creditors want you to believe in so you can get yourself into more debt. If you plant the idea that there is such a thing as good debt in your mind, it can grow to justify that being in debt is a positive thing in your life. If you believe in good debt, then you need to reverse your way of thinking into a good loan. Unless you are rich, debt is inevitable. It is improbable to escape debt. Knowing that debt is inevitable and cancerous should prompt you to understand what debt is and how to deal with it before you get into debt. Too often, especially around the late teens and early 20s, people get their first credit card and end up being in credit card debt. The younger you are, the more financially illiterate you are. You have little understanding of finances, which includes credit, debt, interest, bills, and payments. Being financially illiterate and in debt is like being kidnapped and taken somewhere you do not know and then being forced to pay it off. Does this sound familiar? The buy now and pay later scheme has been the bait that caught countless amount of people into the debt cycle. If you're already in debt, you need to plan on how to pay off the debt as soon as you can and become more financially literate and responsible for your future. If you are currently not in debt, congratulations, you have a preemptive edge before you get into debt. Either way, you will get into more debt later on in your life. But how you deal with debt is completely in your hands. The average American pays $500,000, $500,000 of interest from debt in their lifetime. If debt is the cancer, then interest is the severity of the cancer. Everyone should know the higher the annual percentage rate, APR, the more interest you will pay in the long run. Keep in mind that credit card APRs are the highest among most debt. However, the key thing to keep in mind is the monthly payment amount the creditors ask you to pay. Often, only about 5 to 20% of your minimum monthly payment actually goes towards the principal, the amount you actually owe. The rest is just to pay off the interest for that month. So, if you owe $1,000 and your monthly payment is $50, chances are, out of the $50, $40 goes towards the interest for that month and only $10 towards the principal. So by the end of that month, you will still owe $990 in principal. If you kept on paying a minimum of $50 a month on that $1,000 debt, it will take you 100 months, over 8 years, to pay that debt off, since only $10 goes towards the principal every month. So by the end of that $1,000 loan, you will have paid the creditor $5,000 for a $1,000 loan. The creditors would have made $4,000 off of your $1,000 debt. Creditors love it when you pay the minimum amount because they will drain so much money out of you. This might seem like a drastic or exaggerated example, but this is rather common for credit card debt. Often people just pay the minimum amount and never think about the interest. Interest is what hurts people the most while in debt. If you do not know your APR and how much principal is actually being paid each month, you need to know. Pay more, much more than the minimum amount monthly if you can afford to. The longer you are shackled by the creditors, the longer the cancerous debt will destroy you financially. When you have purged yourself from debt, you will live a much happier and freer life. Buy a modest home that you can afford. Buy things you need and beware of the things you currently want. Buy a decent car that suits your style and budget. Prioritize your debt. And do not care about what other people think. The average person lives their life trying to emulate the lifestyles of celebrities and stars they see on TV. They try to get the best, fanciest, and glamorous things and get in debt over their eyeballs to do it. Before they know it, all the things they have bought will only bring them more problems and stress as they live paycheck to paycheck. They have little time and money to spend on other needs and wants. People follow this route because it is the media's portrayal of the rich and successful, a mirage that the average person sees as the truth. The exceptional person lives their life modestly and plan carefully before they take action. They will have the title to their modest home and cars, the proof of true ownership. They work less because they did not get in over their heads with materialistic wants. They play more because they work less and spend their money on experience like traveling and vacationing rather than expensive inanimate objects. They live with easily manageable or no debt at all, a freer life than their bounded counterparts. All in all, debt is usually a self-inflicted act, or at least a self-conscious one. You got yourself into it, whether you are ready or not is up to you. How you deal with debt is also up to you. It is your life and your finances. You can either let debt be your master, or you can learn to become its master.